Hi, I'm Michael Smith for Nevada Trails. Tonight, a very special show. I have Jim Woods and John Humphreys for birding. And John's a photographer, and Jim's been studying birds for a long time. And thank you for being on Nevada Trails.
Well, thank you for having us.
Well, one of the first things I want to talk about, we're in beautiful Carson Valley, is the migration of birds that come here. And right now, they're starting to change population.
Yes, it's that time of year. We all talk about bird migration from grade school, and we all know that the birds in the north migrate to the south. And what happens is that those birds that come from the far north, like the tundra in northern Canada.
Now you're talking about the tundra,
like in the ice place, way north.
That's major.
Yes, and there's one bird in particular. He's called it's a North American rough-legged hawk. And the North American rough-legged hawk shares the habitat up there with the snowy owls. So he's used to ice, and he's used to a place with no trees. So
wow.
for him in the winter, the Arctic is just too severe. So he migrates to save himself. And what they do is they head south. Well, like the birds here head south, and we all think they end up in Mexico and South America. The rough-legged hawk flies from the Arctic Circle down here to the Carson Valley. That's why this place is so important with its agriculture.
Well, we see them on the telephone poles and the perches all over the place.
You see them out there in the fields.
So are they coming in right now?
They are coming in there right now. Well, I just led a tour over in Sierra Valley in California, and we must have encountered, probably about 25 or 30 of them.
Wow.
And they're big, beautiful birds. Normally light-colored compared to most of the red-tail hawks that we have here.
No, the red-tail live here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's my job, and that's what I do. I take people out on bird tours, and we go out and we look at these birds, learn to identify them, get their field marks down, go grab John and say, hey, come here and take a picture of this really neat bird. And he has some excellent pictures.
Well, I met John last year. We were looking at his bird exhibit, and he was so good that he got kicked out of the gallery here. His stuff was too good. He was competition. So I kind of learned that with Richard. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But your stuff is very, very good. I learned a lot about owls just from looking at your pictures.
I learned a lot about owls just from Jim.
Well, that's the fun thing. Jim's a wealth of knowledge. How did you get started in birds? My little expertise in birds started when I was about, besides finding eggs as a kid, was when I got my first camera. I started taking pictures of birds. It was just something I gravitated to, was nature, but mostly birds. And it was funny, you'd take a picture of a bird, it'd be a little small thing on the film back then. But it was fun. You had to be quiet, had to get up there. And so I'm envious, but you've really kind of turned it into a lifelong passion.
Well, they came to me. I've always enjoyed the outdoors. And I did, when I was a young guy, I was quite a hunter. But the whole thing, it all hinges upon one experience. And now as an old man, I can recall that one time I was playing in the city park in Douglas, Arizona, with a bunch of friends of mine. And I turned around, looked up in a tree, and there was the summer tanager. And I'd never seen a summer tanager, and it's a bright red bird with dark wings.
Wow.
And I just started looking at all the other birds then in a different way, because I'd never seen a red bird. You colored them when you were a kid, but you'd never seen one. Well, I actually looked in a tree and there was a bird. The other thing is I'm out on ranch country down there in southern Arizona, and the off hours are sit there and watch golden eagles and prairie falcons and Harris hawks flying around in the thermals.
Well, that is cool, but I'll get you one better on that one. When I lived down in Garden Valley, the choppers came in to spray the star thistle. The hawks loved the chopper blades. They'd be playing with the air it made. I had never seen anything like it. It was just totally incredible.
They're setting up a vortex.
Yeah. And they just thought, they loved it. I thought, wouldn't they be scared of it? No, not. They just loved the air. And then when I moved out here to Garden Valley, just watched them in the neighborhood, and like you said, it's awesome. And then hopefully when Eagles and Ag come, we see the big ones.
Exactly. At Eagles and Ag, we perform quite a few tours. And one of the ones that I've instituted is called the Raptor Highways and Byways Tour.
Wow.
And this year we're making a major change. We used to run around in 15 passenger vans, and it's just too inconvenient and too hard to get in and out of those things. So we dumped them, and now we've gone to minibus. I got a minibus. It's
Cool.
individual center aisle, the whole thing, big windows, and it's really a nice unit. And what we do with those that tour and all those tours is that we go out for something other than the eagles. There's that rough-legged hawk I'm talking about is here. Another one comes in from Canada and the northern tier states is a ferruginous hawk. He'll nest here in Nevada somewhat, but by and large it comes down into this valley to winter over. We have a lot of red tails moving out of Canada coming down into the valley as well, and with them come the bald eagles that this eagles and agriculture thing's all about. And this is where I met John. Is that we were out there looking at the eagles as they feed on afterbirth and stillborn calves off our cattle herds, and found John wandering around out there with his camera, and he's walking up saying, "Well, what bird is this?" And he has these excellent pictures, and you say, "Well, that's a da-da-da." And we formed up this relationship, and look at the work that he does. You can
very,
you can-
very
you
good.
see this stuff, and you just say, "Hallelujah!" This bird over here is probably one of the better stories. Nature Conservancy, the importance of the valley, the importance of what we do here. Nature Conservancy bought the River Fork Ranch,
Yes.
and they started this restoration. And as Eagles and Ag had progressed along, a group of us were watching the eagles over in the near Genoa, and we're watching them enter the nest. They'll do their pre-courtship thing, and they'd pass sticks back and forth between the male and female, and you think, oh, they're going to nest here, because historically, bald eagles have never nested in this valley. So what we did is we just kept waiting and waiting, and birds would get kind of moving along, and then they'd fly away.
Oh.
Well, Nature Conservancy all the while is working on this ranch. Pretty soon it floods water over across underneath the nest tree. That year they had, these guys hatched out their first chicks in this valley. So 2 brand new chicks came in here about 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So, in an evolutionary sense, the world changed. You don't see it and you don't feel it, but it changed. Because now we have a population of bald eagles in this valley that's never been here before.
No, it's their home.
Yeah, now it's home.
That's probably because isn't there like some of the eagles maybe went back home and mom and dad said, no, it's time for you to go on your own, and maybe they decided to stay here or something?
Exactly. The exploration, you sort of wonder how come eagles have never been here. Well, it isn't that mom and dad go out on a migratory venture to try and find new areas. They typically are faithful to their nest area. They have a migration pattern that they'll go through, but they come back to that nest area. So they really don't want to go anywhere else. So they make this round trip. The kids, on the other hand, get chased out of the nest. It's time for them to leave. And they can't, in time, come back and nest in their parents' territory. They'll get chased off just like everybody else. So what happens
I've been
is...
through that myself.
Yeah, that's, I have a couple of daughters and I tried to chase them off, but they're still hanging around.
My dad was better at it. Sink or swim.
Yeah, but these young eagles, some young eagle came down here, found this herd, and said, oh, hallelujah. I got more food here than I can possibly ever use. So he goes back, talks to the other eagles, and sure enough, over time, we've had as many as 40, 50 eagles show up in the valley looking for this calving.
Well, my first Eagles and Ag trip, I went out to, I think it was the Settlemire Ranch. And there was one eagle that was, I thought it was fake. It looked like a small little midget, just kind of frozen. And someone said he ate too much and now he's just frozen. And I thought he was kidding. Then I went up to the rancher, James Settlemire, and he said, yeah, when I was a kid, the first time I ever saw him was I was about 7 years old. He said this eagle ate too much and it was frozen in his barn. because he ate too much. They eat the afterbirth, and we're down to about our last minute. Can you give out some contact information before we go to break?
Sure. It's Jim Woods. I operate under the style of birding under Nevada skies. Easiest way to reach me is give me a call on my cell phone. It's 720-7009, or send me an email, and it's jim.woods@charter.net. And let's go do this. Or are we still talking?
I don't know. John, did you have any contact information for your photography?
Well, the pictures can be seen on www.akawolf.com. And you can contact me there. You can see the pictures, you can buy pictures, you can contact me for photographic tours of the Valley of Wild Horses. Sometimes we'll join Jim on the photography part. When he has a tour, he'll do the birding. Anybody has questions for photography or how to shoot the birds or the wildlife, then I can help out there.
Well, your skills are right behind us, so we come back, we'll talk more to John and Jim about birding in Carson Valley. Thank you very much.
I'm leaving you, and you're leaving me, and you're looking for the front door, and I'm looking for my keys. What kind of fool could I be? I let you in my front door, and won't you desecrate me? Well, one day I believed I needed a girl as pretty as you. My mama told me, boy, keep your distance, or you'll be singing the blues. Well, now I know I should have listened, as mama's word came true. But one thing's for certain, little darling, I ain't singing the blues. And I'm leaving you, and you're leaving me, and you're looking for the front door, and I'm looking for my keys. What kind of fool could I be? I let you in my front door, I want you to discreet me. Well, the checking account, it used to look pretty. Met a girl from the bigger part of town. She liked to dance, well, she could move around. I told myself, this is all I need. Another dance and I'll be on my knees. Well, I like the kind of dancing that puts us cheek to cheek. Her kind of dancing will leave you feeling weak. Guess I'll grab a beer and just retire. Yes, so watch out, boys, 'cause my baby's on fire. An hour later, I was 2 sheets to the wind. She got a hold of my best friend, Bobby Flynn. I couldn't stop myself from laughing. That little girl had that old boy hacking, so watch out, boy, 'cause my baby's on fire. Yeah, I like the kind of dancing that puts us cheek to cheek. The kind of dancing will leave you feeling weak. I guess I'll grab another beer, just retire. Yes, so watch out, boys, 'cause my baby's on fire. I guess I'll grab another beer and just retire. Yes, so watch out, boys, my baby's on fire.
Hi, we're back from break with Jim Woods and John Humphreys talking about birding in Carson Valley. And one thing I wanted to really emphasize this segment is the Christmas bird count. And we wanted to, it seems like I always miss you about this, getting this on the air. You have a group of people that are knowledgeable of birds, and you, by habitat, get an estimation of how many birds and how many species are in this area?
Exactly. What it is the National Audubon Society started this thing. What it is a 15-mile diameter circle is set in the landscape, and all the birds are supposedly counted within that area.
Wow.
And then through juggling habitat types around, you can estimate the total number of birds in the United States, and it comes out a little better than 60 million. It's called a citizen science program, and what we do is we take the local circle. This is called the Minden Circle. It's only been in operation for 4 years. What we do is the center is over at Eldon and East Valley Road, and that essentially puts the top of the circle up at the Ugit Hot Springs Mountain area, and then over to Foothill Road, down as far south as China Springs, and then out towards Spirit Ranch on the southeast side. And we break it into 10 sections, and we have pro birders, any birders, show up. If you can recognize 10 birds, you're someone we want to talk to.
Well, John had mentioned that when you met John, he had a bird book, and I have some pretty good bird books myself that have the pictures that my grandma had when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. So you have something like that you can give your volunteers?
Yes, and we depend on you to bring your own material. If you have a favorite
you have to
bird
buy your
guide.
own bird book.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but we do have some aids, so you can go out with a good birder, and that's the best way to learn. And you just simply go out, cruise your section of this big circle, and start counting birds, and just knowing by flight pattern, by behavior, by color, by habitat that you're going to find the bird in. You can pretty well get a fine survey made. Right now we have 98 species identified. Last year we had something in the neighborhood of about 16,000 birds. So there's plenty of room for expansion here. We probably have 108 to 110,000 or 10 species, and we should have on a good year, we probably should have a population of about 30,000. So we can double our bird count and increase our species count. And we turn that all into, headquarters, and they juggle it around with a bunch of researchers. And one of the things, this ties, finally the bird count is starting to be used for something. It ties to global warming, this idea of global warming, and they have found that over the whole history of 113 years, birds have moved north. They used to be very common in Colorado. Now that very same bird is common now in Idaho. Birds that were common in Texas are now common in Utah. They're moving, and we're not exactly sure why. But the one thing that's been happening is if you put that, the global warming track on it, it's following that pattern. So it may be one of those things that's true. It may not be. Maybe the birds just want to move.
Well, going over 100,000 years, it's hard to know where our little time span, if it is or isn't.
Right.
But when you're doing the bird count, do you have someone like John to shoot the new species? If you see something that you think is a different species, is he by your side with this big camera?
We like to have John and everyone carrying their portables around, because there's a lot of birds that are kind of rare. Cedar waxwings aren't a real common bird. Evening grosbeaks aren't a real common bird. Goshawk, we had a goshawk. We have a couple of goshawks operating in the valley. Nationally, and according to all the bird guides, they're not supposed to be here.
I didn't think so either.
So what we do is we find them migrating through. They're going to Arizona. From wherever they came from, they probably headed for Arizona because they're not going to stay here. So we're just trying to capture them. This year we're going to try and capture them on January 5th, a Saturday. On that Saturday, if those birds are in this valley within this circle, we want to see them, and we want to count them. And I'm depending on John and other good photographers
No
to
pressure.
be able to validate that thing, because if a goshawk's coming through, it's going to only be that day. So
Well, that's exactly what I was going to ask you next. One thing I want to get rid of an urban legend. We took down our bird feeder because we thought that we were keeping the birds up here in Tahoe and they would die from cold. But you said, no, that's not right.
Yeah. You can feed birds year round. A bird is only going to fly as far as it needs to survive. And not one bird, not one wing flap further. He's wasting energy when he's doing that.
So our high quality bird feed is not keeping them here.
Yeah, well, they do. They do. They like it here.
Yeah.
And if the weather suits their clothes, if their feathers are capable of handling the weather, and you're feeding them, he's home.
He's on vacation.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I said when you said the different species, I've seen a lot of, like we said, the 25 birds in a pack of little blackbirds I hadn't seen before, and I thought they were coming from someplace else and just passing through. I've also seen some summer birds that I didn't expect to be up here that were different colors. They're brighter colors. I call them summer birds. I don't know if that's right or wrong. But the birds here are bigger and tougher looking, like the blue jays that I have are not like Michigan blue jays. They're a lot, their heads are cockier. I'm not sure how to say it. The crown's different. But am I seeing the grandkids of the kids I had from like 10 years ago on the same turf? Because some of them look like the same birds I saw 10 years ago.
There's a nest fidelity with birds, and if not a nest tree fidelity. And what you find is a lot of the birds will go back to the area they were born in, or hatched out in and fledged in. So that's their neighborhood. And even after a migration to Central America and back, they'll come back to an area that they're familiar with. And what they do is they learn the lay of the land. They know that the water's over there, then there's good food over there, and stay away from this place up here. So they learn the lay of the land, and they work that way.
So the problem with the sage grouse that just had a meeting of their survival is that the land is disappearing.
Yeah, I think on the sage grouse, what you find is that the sage grouse is he's really focused. His goal in life is to hang around a thing called a lek. And the lek is where the males go and they do this dance or they do some booming and strutting. And they attract the females, and that's where they mate up and they go out and have their kids. That lek is really important. We don't really know or understand the full impacts of roads going by, of ATVs, of motorcycles coming by. We don't know what that impact, that noise disturbance corridor is on sage grouse. One of the things we do know is that the more you open up the wilderness, the more your chances of inviting wildfire, which is a major impact on sage grouse. That burns their place down. The sage grouse in the spring isn't so totally dependent on sage to eat as a food source. It's very dependent on sage during the winter when times are really tough. This bird has evolved right alongside the sage to be able to process and eat that particular plant. Most other birds don't. They'll eat the seed a little bit, but that's about it. Most browse animals don't. They'll take the tender leaf, but they won't take the plant itself. Sage grouse have evolved to the point where they live right alongside this, and they depend on it. So when you have a fire go through, no real problem during the spring when you got water and you have grasses with seeds, because they're feeding from the plant types called forbs. That's what they're feeding their kids. When the winter comes, then they're totally dependent upon this sage. And if you've burned it down, then you're in real trouble. And they get into a conflict where they're trying to stay on this lek that they're born to, essentially. They're trying to stay there, but they're staying in a place that doesn't have any food, and it's cold. So, here we're getting the decreasing sage grouse populations. There's a couple of studies that kind of point out that sage grouse weren't very, very numerous to begin with.
But they affect the food chain pretty good, though.
Yeah, they're part of it. The prairie falcons depend on them. The golden eagles depend on them. A peregrine was getting out, they would take on sage grouse. So the whole ecosystem, coyotes if they can find them, raccoons and skunks, they'll all prey upon a prairie chicken.
Well,
A sage hen.
Well, I was going to ask you though, when you found John, did you kind of adopt him because of his desire to be in this valley? I know when you first went on the show that.
All you got to do is look at
Just
him, and he
enjoy the
needs to be adopted.
Photography part.
Yeah,
And I enjoy Jim's company.
Yeah, well, when you were on my show a while back, you brought Jim, and we
Right.
had a similar meeting. But it seems like he is the best person in the world, probably, to learn your craft from, because you probably know how.
He leads me to the right places to shoot the birds. So without him, I couldn't shoot some of these birds. I wouldn't know where to find them. And now I'm learning more and more about the habitat, where to find certain kind of birds, and Jim's been a big part of that.
Well,
So now I hang with him. I get the pictures that he wants, and I also get the locations where the birds are at, so I can always go back.
So that's a pretty good knowledge.
Oh yeah, it's invaluable. It's been great. It's been a real good relationship.
Well, Jim said
We
he found you
complement each
wandering
other.
around someplace or walking around someplace. You remember where that was?
Oh.
Was it like an Eagles and Ag thing?
Eagles and Egg. It could have been on one of the ranches, Settlemire Ranch, Park Ranch somewhere.
Oh, down to last minute. Go out and give your contact out.
My pictures can be found at www.akawolf.com. My contact is on there. I can be contacted for purchasing the pictures, for tours, photographic tours of the valley, a lot of which are wild horse tours. People come from other states. They want to see wild horses and photograph them.
Well, you definitely
I can
do
take
a
care
good
of
job.
that. Well, thank you.
And Jim, your contact?
It's Jim Woods, Birding Under Nevada Skies. Cell number is 720-7009. Drop me an email, and all my tours are custom. So when you're ready to go, I'm ready to go. So my email is jim.woods@charter.net. One of the things that I'm finding is that a lot of the retirement homes and communities are now becoming very active in the birding business. And so are businesses. We're finding that that's the new bonus. Getting calls from corporations saying, well, why don't you take my ace employee and his wife and their kids, for a 2 or 3 day tour. And that's standing in place of him not getting his Christmas bonus. And these times, we're getting kind of creative as to what we do.
That's excellent. Well, thank you for being on Nevada Trails. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael.
Come back again.
Hey, Michael.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Come back and study birds for the Christmas bird count. Give them a call, and then also start thinking about Eagles and Ag. I think it's the end of February in there
End of
someplace.
February.
And enjoy the birds, because this is one of the special areas in the country. Thank you very much.